What is up, homies? My name is Felix and I'm here back again with another video for you all today. And today in this one, I am going to be showing you all how to make a Mac DeMarco type beat. If you haven't heard of Mac DeMarco, he's basically like the guy that everybody thinks of when you think of indie music type stuff. So I gotta warn you, there's a lot of very valuable information in this video. Did a lot of research for this one, all the way from the type of hardware gear he uses to the way he has his pickup selectors on his guitar and everything. There's gonna be a lot of stuff in here. So yeah, make sure you guys check out my Instagram and my SoundCloud down in the description below, along with the playlist of songs I've produced, my beat store, my Discord, all that stuff. Go check it out if you'd like to do so. And now we can get into this video. Alright, so for this tutorial, I'm going to be using a few different things. Everything that I'm using can be substituted out for whatever other stuff that you have on hand. So the first thing is, I have no idea if you can see this, but the first thing is going to be your DAW, your digital audio workstation. I'm going to be using FL Studio, but whatever you use will work too. The second one here is going to be a little guitar action. So I'm actually going to be using 3 different guitars. The first guitar is this one right here. It's basically a Super Strat, and Mac DeMarco likes to use Stratocasters a lot. Everything else is pretty optional and can be done with plugins and stuff. However, the electric guitar is probably going to be like the biggest thing that you're going to want to have. But the second guitar that I'm going to be using is this little bass guitar. If you don't have a bass guitar, you can use ample bass, or you can actually use an electric guitar and pitch it down to make it sound like a bass. There's a little video on that right there. You don't need to have an acoustic for this because you can get a very recognizable Mac DeMarco sound with just the electric guitar, but on a lot of his more recent stuff, he's actually been using quite a bit of acoustic. So pretty much the final thing that I'm going to use here today is going to be a various assortment of plugins. I'm going to be using a lot of Waves plugins. They're going to be linked down in the description below. They're affiliate links, so if you get anything from them, it helps me out a little bit, which is dope. But yeah, Waves plugins are amazing for this because Mac uses a lot of like hardware gear that's super expensive and vintage and old and analog or whatever that most common people like you and I do not have access to. Because I don't know about you, but I personally don't have like $70,000 laying around to just spend on a bunch of hardware compressors and stuff like that. So we're gonna be using plugins. Another thing I'm probably gonna use is a little So first things first, we're gonna focus on probably the most important part of this track here is gonna be the electric guitar. So when it comes to your guitar, the first thing you're going to want to do is take the pickup selector and put it into the lead mode. More of like a neck pickup situation. You basically want to have a little bit thinner of a guitar sound. But you can do it whatever way you want to, whatever way you think sounds good. So part of the unique guitar sound that he has is due to the weird kind of tuning things that he does. Some people say to tune slightly up. Some people say to tune slightly down. I did see one thing that said that he records at like 430 or 432 or something like that, and then pitches it up using his like tape machine or whatever. On my guitar, the whole tuning and vibrato system on this thing is pretty out of whack. So because my guitar is a little bit weird with changing the tuning, for some of the things I ended up tuning to 444 Hz, but for the other things I ended up just tuning to 440 and then slightly pitching them up in FL Studio. If you want to mess around with the tuning and stuff, just remember that 1 Hz is roughly equal to 4 cents. So just keep that in mind when you're messing around with the pitch inside of your DAW. So when it comes to the actual playing of the guitar and choosing your chord progression and everything, you're probably going to want to have a capo because he uses a capo on a lot of his songs and just kind of helps him to get more sustain out of certain chords and stuff like that. So I'm going to put mine right there maybe. So once you have your capo on whichever fret you might choose to put it on, you're going to want to come up with just a really simple chord progression, really basic. You're going to want to pick something that's in a major key. So for me, I'm just going to do a little 1-4-5 action, something like this. Sounds fine as it is, but it's not really the Mac DeMarco style that we're going for. So what you have to do is take your average little chord progression you got and change some of those chords into some weird little chords. You're going to want to change a lot of them to 7th chords, maybe some 9th chords. Definitely going to want to add in like some dominant 7 or dominant 9 chords. So what I'm going to do is just take the first chord, turn it into a major 7, and then play the same chord but a dominant 9th chord. And then I'm going to make the 4th a major 7. And then I'll have the 5th be a dominant 7. So that's what I'm going to do for the verse section, but for the chorus section, you might want to switch it up a little bit. So yeah, a little recap for the guitar stuff. You basically just want to take your average little major chord progression, pretty simple, 4 or 5 chords or something like that, and then just swap them out for some jazzier chords, some 7th, 9th, dominant chords, stuff like that. Maybe even throw in a little diminished if you're feeling funky. One thing I forgot to mention is this right here, high quality, high tech music gear. This is a little piece of toilet paper, little paper of the toilet. We're not putting it in the toilet today, we're putting it on our guitar. What you might want to do is just shove it right here, and then I'll just give you a really cool muted kind of guitar sound if that's something that he's done before. Alright, so now here we are currently back at the computer, and the first thing I'm going to do for this track is add a little kind of drum backing track type thing. So as far as your tempo, there's a pretty big range that you can choose from. If you're trying to do some of his slower type stuff, you can go for like maybe like a 75 BPM, but if you're going for more of like a faster, upbeat, freaking out the neighborhood type vibe, you can maybe go for like 145 or something like that. Totally up to you, just whatever fits kind of the idea in your head. If you got a real drum kit, that's perfectly fine, but for me, I personally do not. So I'm going to be using a couple sounds from my brand new drum kit. There's actually some really good sounds for this specific style of beat in my drum kit, so definitely go check that out if you'd like to use some of the sounds that I'm using here today. But as far as your drum pattern goes, you can pretty much just put your snares right here, and then you can just do a simple two-step hi-hat pattern, and then put a couple kicks in here, maybe like this. You don't want to have a super banging kick drum or anything, just a really light kick drum, nothing too crazy. With your hi-hats though, you're definitely going to want to go like this. And I would recommend turning the swang up on your drums a little bit. I actually just recently did a video on how to program drums that sound realistic. So that video is going to be right here. I'm going to do a couple of those things that I did in that video to these drums. But yeah, so now that we pretty much have a backing track going on, we can lay this down like this. But before we just record some guitar willy-nilly over this, we're going to want to do a couple things with the effects. So there's a video that Mac did with Reverb where he talks about his pedal board and everything. And I'm going to be copying what he showed in that video on the guitar here today. So there's a Waves plugin that I'm using here called, it's called GTR Stomp 6, and it's basically just a bunch of guitar pedals that you can use. So I used it to kind of emulate the pedal board that he had in that Reverb video. However, all this stuff can be done with individual plugins, but it was kind of just easier to put it all into one instead of having like 10 different plugins loaded up. So a lot of people think the effect that he puts on his guitar is a chorus. Although he does use a chorus pedal for his live performance stuff, he uses a vibrato for his like studio recorded stuff. So you just want to have a relatively slow vibrato that's just, you know, jiggling around, putting your guitar a little bit out of tune here and there. Next thing that we are going to use is a little delay pedal, and this first delay pedal is just to add like a little bit of ambience. Like you don't even really want to hear like the actual profile of the guitar strum. You just want to have a pretty quick and pretty quiet delay. So the next thing you want to put on there is a little bit of reverb, just like a medium helping, no like huge cathedral reverb or anything like that. And now the next thing you want to have is another delay actually, and this one is going to be a little bit more noticeable. However, it's really just going to be one delay besides the first one. And then basically the last thing he had that he didn't really mention was a compressor. So I just got a little compressor action going on here. So yeah, after messing around, fiddling around a little bit, we've got quite a Mac DeMarco-esque type sound going on. Pretty epic, pretty cool, swag.
Get in there, get up in there, get up.
Alright, so now that we're TP'd up, I'm going to try to record a little guitar portion, a little guitar part over the drums that we have laid down. Sounds pretty cool. I like that. Alright, so this right here is going to be the little chorus section. Okay, so now I'm going to try to record a little bit of a lead type sound. I just kind of fiddle around until I find the notes that sound good, and then I play those ones, and if they don't sound good, I don't play them. Alright, so now at this point, I think I've pretty much recorded all the electric guitar that I need, so I'm going to record a little bass line now. So as far as the bass goes, you can probably get away with just playing the root note of the chords and you'll be fine. However, it will sound nice to add a couple little licks and stuff in there, but if you are just going to play the root note, or if you're going to use like ample bass or something like that, just make sure it's got a little bit of feel to it. Just put a little oomph behind it, you know. Kind of like that. This is what I got going on for the verse right now. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna record some acoustic guitar. So with the acoustic guitar, what you wanna do is just record the exact same chords that you already have with the electric guitar, except for you wanna just have more of like a fingerstyle, folky type pattern. Alright, so now at this point, we've pretty much recorded all the guitar stuff that we need to. The only other things we add from this point out are going to be like hardware synth emulations, because I don't have any synths. And also, I'm going to add a little bit of this. Alright, so now what we're going to do is add a couple little hardware synth emulation plugins. So Mac has quite a few different synths, pretty much anything you could think of. Probably be able to find really good synthy Mac DeMarco type sounds inside of Analog Lab. If you don't have Analog Lab, however, there's a lot of other analog synth emulation plugins out there. If you need some free analog synth emulation plugins, I would recommend checking out this video. So if you are using Analog Lab, what I would recommend is just go to the Instruments tab right here, and then just pick a synth that you're looking for a sound from. So one thing that Mr. DeMarco will do quite often is just have some sort of really basic synthy pad type sound, just playing the exact same chords as the guitar, and it'll just be like a very long chord like this. Another thing you might hear is like some high-pitched, almost like abrasive sounding synthy keys that he'll use for like a little counter melody lead type thing, like something like this. But it's kind of hard to summarize somebody's entire, synth work and, discography. But I would just say as long as you can find some good vintage synthy type sounds, you'll probably be fine. So like I said, he has a lot of hardware gear that, probably you and I don't have. So I'm going to be using Waves plugins for that. I think he has 1176s. I know he has a DBX 160. I think he's got a couple Pultec EQs. He's got a 2A. He's got pretty much anything you can wish for, like I was kind of saying. And looking at pictures of his studio and his setup and everything, it's really hard to tell what he uses for what, but we're just going to make a general assumption here. But I'm probably just going to run these drums through the CLA 2A compressor by Waves, and I might put that one on the master as well, along with the 1176 or something like that. I also have gotten quite fond of using this This API 560 EQ is just really good to use. It does the job and it sounds good as well. Also, Mac records everything onto tape, so obviously on the master we're gonna put some sort of tape emulation plugin, preferably not one that's more like exaggerated, meant for like lo-fi type stuff, meaning like RC20 or Reels or something like that. You can make both of those sound a little bit more realistic, but I'm personally just gonna use one of the Waves ones, like the J37 tape or the Kramer tape or whatever it's called. So yeah, that's definitely going to be a big part of this because everything he does goes through a tape machine. But yeah, so really the last thing I want to mention here is that with the drums, I'm just going to add some of these here and there. And then also inside my drum kit, I have a really nice little fill thing here. And then with the layout of this track and everything, it's not going to be anything too crazy. Obviously, like you saw, I recorded a little verse section and a chorus section. So we're going to have the verse section playing for a little bit, go into the chorus, maybe have a little bridge going on, bring back the verse. Pretty standard stuff here. We're not doing any, rocket science. One thing I might do, though, is add a little ride sound when the chorus is playing. But yeah, so other than that, I think that's pretty much going to do it for me here in this one. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video here today. This was definitely a really fun one for me to make. There was a lot of research and everything that went into this, but I think I was able to get a pretty good, pretty accurate result here that I'm definitely happy with. So yeah, make sure you guys go check out my Instagram and my SoundCloud down in the description below, along with the playlist of songs I produced, my beats on my Discord, all that stuff. Go check it out if you'd like to do so. But yeah, so that does it for me, and I will see you guys next time.
some Z.